Everybody, thanks for coming along. This is Raging Thirst, and we hope to quench that this evening. I've got friends gone to Sydney on an evening plane. Once she sees those city lights, she won't be back again. And from the airport lounge, I can see the town skyline, see the hills in the distance, and it feels like you're in time, 'cause I'm back home in Adelaide. Yes, I'm back home again. Well, my sister's gone to Brisbane, her husband's gone to Perth. I get a postcard of London from a friend at work. All the kids have gone to Melbourne to kickstart their careers, 'cause a part-time job in Kmart is all we can offer here, while I'm back home in Adelaide. Yes, I'm back home again. At 6:15 every morning, two jets fly overhead. They're bound for the eastern states and they get me out of bed. The sound of people leaving is the sound that starts my day, and it always starts me thinking it could be me again someday. But I'm sitting in the sunshine in my big backyard, eating peaches from my fruit tree, and leaving just seems too hard. While I'm back home in Adelaide. Yes, I'm back home again. Oh, I'm back home in Adelaide. Yes, I'm back home again. Thanks very much.
Kevin, could I get a little bit more of Don's voice in the foldback, please?
Yeah, me too. Hey, this song, the next song is, there's this radio show on 3D radio every Monday night called the Hillbilly Hoot, and when we started it off 25 years ago, we used to play out on the veranda of the old building that it used to be in, and about 10 o'clock at night after we had a few beers, and we used to put all the empty cans and bottles next to this stovey pole, and an old bloke called Albie would come along and collect up the bottles. And, you know, after a while you'd see Albie around all over that area collecting up things. And so I got this idea for this song out of that. It's called Collecting Albie. Albie collects up bottles and aluminium cans, then he sells them down the depot for whatever he can. Collecting Albie, collecting Albie. Well, Albie wears a pork pie hat, walks like a man with things to do. He carries an old shopping bag, it's red, white and blue. Albie collects our bottles and aluminium cans. up on Main Street collecting after dark. And every Monday evening he comes over late at night to collect up all the bottles we'll leave out by the light. Collecting Albie, collecting Albie. Okay, Dave, should I go home to bed or drink another beer? Albie needs the bottle, so I guess the answer's clear. Collecting Albie, collecting Albie. Well, may your bag be full of empties and your eagle eyes stay true. May the handles on your shopping bag never fail on you. May you collect up all the empties in the southern hemisphere and the pile that they make go through the stratosphere. Collecting Albie, collecting Albie. Now, this is one of the first songs I ever wrote way back. I know I don't look old enough to have been playing in the 1980s, or actually 1979, but yeah, so we're going to do some new ones as well, but so we might as well cover all the eras. It's called Stuffed Again. Now, I've found over the years of driving around, you know, going to touring and going to gigs and things. I shouldn't have mentioned cars, because my car's at the mechanics and I've had it for a week and I won't be getting... Anyway, let's not worry about it. And if anybody sees any reading glasses around, I've lost them as well. there's only one way to cure the Hay Plain blues, and that's by going across the Nullarbor a few times. But one time, relatively recently, I was crossing the Hay Plains, and sort of on the way, this song seeped into my mind. I drove all the way to Sydney in the middle of the night. When I went through Penrith, it started getting light. In that narrow street in Newtown, outside that front door, finally got through to me. I couldn't do this anymore. So I turned around and drove back from where I came, fighting with the sun on that wide empty plain, with the Hay Plain blues. Just drive on through, don't turn around, don't turn around. That was years and years ago. I tried not to think about it much. There are a lot of good reasons to fall out of touch, but I just got a call, so I'm going back again. This time I'm driving to farewell an old friend, with the Hay Plain blues. Just drive on through, don't turn around, don't turn around. There's a lot of time to think out there. There's a lot of sky to see. An eagle drifting way up in the air, trying to find a tree. With the Hay Plain blues, the Hay Plain blues, the Hay Plain blues. Now I'm sort of in the process of recording a new CD. This time in the next decade, maybe it'll be done. I don't know, but I'm going to do a couple of songs off that. What are we doing there? Let's see. Don't look back. Well, I saw an old friend in a fancy car as she went driving by. She was more than a friend in days gone by. I looked down at my shoes and I wondered why. Then I heard an old song come on the radio I had not heard for years. It was an old, old song I had not heard for changed a bit. It doesn't go to the chorus this last time. It just ends. I do this high squawk, and after 3 of those, it ends. Okay.
Just stand so we can see your hands.
Yeah, that's right. Just teaching this new. This is another brand new one. We played it a while back, but we were going to have a practice. But Eddie and Jake were dominating in Peterborough last night and this morning. They played up there. So
That's right. We're kind of a big deal up in Peterborough. I don't know if you know that about us. So, you know, it's a pretty big get for us to be here, so you should be pretty happy about that.
everybody gets hurt now and then. We're all gonna be dirt, not sure when. There's gonna be rich and there's gonna be poor. You can scratch that itch like the one before. Well, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You know the score, but you still play the game. You can do your best, end up like all the rest. Or maybe you get lucky and be very well dressed. You can be with someone you call a keeper, but now they're gone and you're a weeper. Well, you're out on the streets looking for some place to stay, and some big knob comes up and says, "Get out of my way!" 1 and 1 is 2. We all know that's true. But after that, things get complicated. Everybody gets hurt now and then. We're all gonna be dirt, but not sure when. You can get real high, but you come down low. You can start off fast, but you'll end up slow. Okay, here's an old song. I hope we can remember this one. Another Place? Yep, okay. I remember, this is another really, one of the earliest ones I wrote, is living in this, it was a 2-story flat in St Kilda, and had this little bit of a view that went down towards Frankston and all that. And it was in 1983, and I was teaching to our guitarist at the time, Kelvin Fleming. He's an ex-Adelaide guy. And we looked out the window, and there was this huge, thick dust storm thing coming up. It was the Ash Wednesday storm. And it's sort of appropriate because the name of the song was I Wish I Was in Another Place. So. Let's see. across the ocean, or a shack by the sea. You can go just any place where you'd wanna be, on a tropical island or by a mountain stream. I can go just anywhere, but only in my dreams. I gotta do something before I get old. But all of this here, waiting around, eats away at my soul. And it's always better in another place. It's always better in another place. I wanna go and run my own race, and not be cut down. Yeah. Because here I got nothing. I'm stuck in this hole. The only place I ever see my name is written on my door. And it's always better in another place. It's always better in another place. I wanna go and run my own race, and not be cut down. Thank you.
Look at that. Thank you very much to that mystery benefactor out there.
That's a free CD, that one.
Yeah. We were hoping to swindle Don after the gig because he wouldn't be able to read the fine print on any of the contracts, but that's fine.
And the worst part of that was that it was spotted by a bloke without glasses. That's right. So we know how to do please. We haven't done this yet. We haven't done this right in E, I reckon. Just have to have the beer first.
Work up the nerve.
Yeah. When you were a stranger, you filled my life with danger. You were my one secret thrill. Then when you were my lover, I dreamed of no other. You were the center of my will. When you came around to my place, I know the smile on my face was bright enough to light up half the world. And when we were together, I knew it was forever. I was that lucky man with the special girl.
Just a minute. I heard you tell that other guy, between you and me there's nothing in it.
Talk about manners there.
Now, when I'm doing my sold-out stadium tours of, USA and Europe and things, when people find out I'm from Adelaide, they ask me questions about, what's the music scene like and all that. And so I've come up with an answer for them in a song. It's about what might have happened to Bob Dylan had he been born in Adelaide. Bob Dylan was born in Adelaide in 1941. He went to Unley High School, but he never got along. Not exactly unpopular, just a little strange sometimes. He excelled in English and I could talk in funny rhymes. Once he wrote a song, something about blowing in the wind. Then he went to teachers college and didn't play much again. Well, Bob met Mary Lennon at a protest rally. They bought a brick veneer down their Happy Valley. Bob got a job teaching poetry to teenage Catholic boys. He was ideal for the job, immune to the smell and noise. Mary thought Bob's voice was awful and encouraged him not to sing. She said, Bob, take up photography. Music's not your thing. Well, Mary's brother lived in Maylands. His name was John. He was a bitter, twisted cynic, and they never got along. He drunk himself to death, working in the public service. Bob and Mary were alone at the funeral service till it was nearly time to go, when three blokes showed up and introduced themselves as George, Paul and Ringo. Well, after 40 years of teaching, Bob finally called time. The staff took up a collection and bought him some fine wine. Now the Dylans are grey nomads, off to see Australia. Bob threw his old guitar in the back of the camper trailer. And one night around the campfire, after a lot of rearranging, Bob calls, hey Mary, listen to this. It's called The Times They Are A-Changin'. Mary said, shut up, Bob, and get in the car. Lucky I wasn't blind enough to not order a second beer. That's right. Actually, I usually judge the length of the sets by my beer, and I remember I hadn't been back to Melbourne for many years, and I went back there and I bought a pint, and it was like a proper pint, but I didn't pay much attention to it. Then I got told off for making my sets go overtime because I was waiting for the pint to finish. But anyway.
And they only got longer and longer as you had more of those pints.
That's right.
Had more things to say.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm having to restart songs 3 or 4 times. Now what we're going to do? Oh, Fly Away. That's right.
If I could fly away, I'd try today. There's not much here to lose. I could still play 3 chords and the truth, so I'll fly away, fly away. Don't ask me why, it's too hard to say. I look to the sky. Thanks very much. Well, it's always a little bit, I don't know what the right word is, sort of coincidental or something. That I do this next song. It was I used to go to Morrisons Brothers down the corner there. You see, it was, and I won't go into any of the details there. But one day after 3rd year, I came home and I told my old dad, "I'm not going back there. I don't care. I'll go and work in a factory or whatever, but I'm not going there again." And so they said, "That's all right. You can go up to Nord High," which was a 2-minute walk from our front yard, as opposed to catching 2 buses to come down here every day and 2 buses back. complete rubbish. But the best thing about Norwood High was when I got there, they had girls in the class. And actually, one of my sisters here, so don't take offence, but I had 3 sisters, but these were proper girls in the class. Anyway, after a little while, I had a short affair with a girl called Hillary, and lasted. We were very innocent. We used to hold hands. I remember getting threatened to be kicked out of the Catacombs Club in Hackney there, because we actually had a kiss. That was my first kiss, and I got threatened to be ejected because of it. Anyway, yeah, we
Glad you learned your lesson.
Yeah, that's right. And many years later, I thought, I wonder what happened to Hillary, So I Googled her like you can now, and there's quite a bit about her online. She was a mathematics professor at the Australian National University, and she was famous for coming up with a theory that only, a dozen people in the world could understand. And I knew she knew all about that stuff because I explained it to her in 4th year at Norwood High. And anyway, the reason I could find out so much about Hillary was because it was actually an obituary. She died some years before. And the obituary said that she had 2 children. And so I wrote this song called Note to Hillary's Kids. I don't know where you are, I don't even know your names, but I know you're out there somewhere, so I'll write this just the same. I trust this finds you well, I hope life's treating you okay. I know this comes out of the blue, but there's something I'd like to say. I just found out your mother died quite a while ago. Nobody told me there's no reason I should know. But you see, I knew your mother in my last year at school. She was in the brainy class and I was a sporting fool. She took a shine to me, I've got no idea why. She was the first girl I ever kissed and the last to make me cry. I called her mine, it didn't last very long. She let me down gently, said it was time to move along. We seem to be dwelling in the old days at the moment here. So we've got some new ones to come later on, but you've probably all heard this story, but I'm going to say it anyway. A while back, a few years ago, I heard an interview with the manager of the Angels, who was managing them in the 80s and 90s, and he said that the Angels did 280 gigs in 1981. And I still had the records from the Bodgies when we used to play. And we did 290 gigs in 1981. I checked it out. Except nobody had ever heard of us because we didn't have anything on the radio. But we do stuff like 7 nights a week in Melbourne for 2 weeks, then travel up to Sydney, 7 nights a week for 2 weeks up there. We do stuff like finish at the Mansell Room in King's Cross at 4 in the morning, hop in the van and drive back down to Melbourne for a gig the next night, and come back over to Adelaide, even played in Bordertown, can you believe that? And Conniver. I'll tell you the Conniver story later. But anyway, I've got lost now. Yeah, so we used to do all that, and I've written a rollicking biography called This Could Be Big, 40 Years at the Dag End of the Australian Music Industry. And it just so happens I've got a few copies here to sell. And sometimes I'm asked to sum it up, so I just say 5 men in a car. Refueling stops on our road to fame. We've been here before, maybe. Now I'm not sure, but it looks the same as the place before. Now it's my turn to drive. The oil light comes on outside Nundroo. If we break down out here, not sure what we'll do. Roadhouse food near Gundagai could be Horsham or Hay, Lismore or Yass or Narrabri. should introduce Jake Morrison on the guitar. And Eddie Morrison on the bass. And Andy Przgonski on the drums.
Ladies and gentlemen, too hot to handle, too cold to hold. When they made Don Morrison, they broke the mold. Mr. Don Morrison!
I've already made this joke, but I don't look old enough, I know, to have been around in 1966. But yes, I was just a little kid. A true. It's so funny, this song, because I thought it was a great story, and for years and years I tried to write a song and it was just no good. And then I did this gig with a poet in Melbourne. He did poetry and sometimes put them to tunes. Ian Bland, that's it. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. So I wrote this poem and it came out in a few minutes. And the most words I've ever squeezed into 2.5 minutes. It could be a disaster. Well, the rats were big as rabbits in 1966. They came in from the paddock and they chewed Mum's garden to bits. I thought maybe I could catch one and make something with its fur. Then we went to town and saw the film Ben-Hur. So I built a small chariot with the wheels for my sister's pram. All the uncles started laughing when I told them about my plan. They said, good luck, boy, we hope you succeed. How many rats to pull that thing you think you're gonna need? But I really wanted 6. I was going to rope them all together and teach them to do tricks. We'd roll around the neighbourhood at fantastic speed. Those rats would pull me faster than any racing steed. Old Pop come down from Broken Hill and helped me build a trap. We built a pretty big one because I wanted the biggest rats. He said, don't let the dog out, boy. He'll eat all the bait. And you'll have to be patient and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. Buried in the grass. I started to get worried about the rats chewing at my ass. I could hear all the other kids playing in the street. But the only time I left my post was when I had to eat. Well, the holidays were ending and the cousins came down to stay. I got a bit distracted, then the rats just went away. I was enrolled in Morris Brothers starting in a week, so I went back to catching yabbies and playing cricket in the street. Then Pop put the wheels back on my sister's pram, and one of the uncles went off to some place called Vietnam. None of that worried me, because I had the best plan of all. We were going to hike all the way to Morialta. And we were going to find the mythical Third Falls. Decimal currency in 1966. Ron the Tank Kneebones, McGarry Medal, 1966. The Rat Plague of 1966. Thanks very much. We're going to take a short break now. We're back on in a little while, and hopefully we won't play out of tune.